122,000 games on this little small form factor PC running an i7 processor, gigabyte LAN, you got an SSD, you got 2 terabytes worth of games, over 70 systems. This could be the ultimate box for your plug and play TV or for your man cave, or just, it has a lot of potential here. So it has a Battlesera Linux retro gaming front end with everything from Atari all the way up to PlayStation 3. And it runs, arcade, all your Nintendo consoles, Sega Genesis, Dreamcast, you name it, and more. Even Nintendo Wii U, Nintendo Wii, GameCube, it's got it all. But also, you could boot up into Windows 11 and use this as like a streaming device. You can download things. It's basically an all-you-can-play computer, pre-set up for you with a controller. So let's go ahead and check it out. All right, so I'm going to start this video off just going through what consoles are included, what games, how it's all organized and sorted. Most of you buying the system are going to be retro gamers, and so here's what's included. We're going to start with 3DO there at 46 games. Remember, total is 122,000 games. You'll notice on the right corner there, you get an image of the game. You get a little description, how many players, things like that. And so all that information, for the most part, is included in this system, or in this, this whole package here. And you are running Battlesera Linux, so you can hit start on your controller or select on your controller to select. And there's all kinds of options you could do, and it's all done by the ease of use with your controller. 90% of this system can just be ran by the controller. There is a controller included, and you can absolutely add your own third-party controllers, like an Xbox 360 controller, a Wii U controller, whatever your heart desires, 8-bit dough. You can even have an arcade stick if you'd like. So we're just going through the consoles here. The first few systems, it's alphabetical order, and so if you want to see the total amount of games, you can see it there. I brought up the total amount of games because some systems are just overly inflated with bootleg games, homebrew games, games from different regions, everything from Brazil to Europe, US, Japan, you name it. They have, a lot there. So there you go, Apple II. Now we're moving to arcade. Now with arcade, keep in mind there's 6 different categories for arcade. There's going to be arcade, there's going to be MAME, there's going to be FB Neo, Final Burn Alpha or Final Burn Neo. And so some of these games, you'll notice some games are included in multiple collections, and you might have to hit select on a game if it doesn't boot and change the emulator core. Now you might be wondering, why do I have to do that? Well, you don't have to do that. They'll be working in their different categories. I actually didn't find one where it was not working altogether. It was just I had to boot it up in the Final Burn Neo section instead of the arcade. So long story short, all the arcade games and things are working. Just do note the arcade and MAME games are scattered, and I'll show you as we move along. So just jumping through the Atari systems as we go here, even Atari Jaguar and then Atari Lynx. Something else to notice while we're going through the games here is the way in which they're spelled out. So you notice the Jaguar was super well organized. It didn't say USA, it didn't say the region. It was just very nice and clean. Some people like it like that, kind of like this atomiswave. Well, there you go. Guilty Gear X version 1.5. Like sometimes they'll keep the data on the ROMs in there, or like this one here. And so you're going to get a mix bag of this. So here's some more arcade games, CPS system or Capcom Play System. You got CPS 1, 2, and 3. You're seeing here. It's going to have all your Street Fighters, all those action games, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Punisher, all that good stuff. Coleco, all of them, Commodore 64, a good amount. And then now we start our Nintendo journey. There's quite a bit of Nintendo games on here. And, well, before we start our Nintendo, here's the other one, FB Neo. So this is what I was telling you. The game in particular that I played is this Great 1000 Mile Rally game. You're going to want to play that in the FB Neo here, even though there's a version of it back in the arcade section we saw earlier, as you'll see here. And that's what my point was earlier was, there'll be a game in here that was not, properly, put in the right folder, but really easy thing to do. So if you notice what I just did there, I hit select on my controller, and especially when you have like 1,000 games in one directory, you can search for the game and get there a lot easier to manage all these systems. So you see there, I clicked on the game, it booted me back out, right? Because You either need to change the emulator here at Advanced System Options, or just open it in the Final Burn Neo area is where you want to go. So as you'll see here, lots of collections. What I did want to mention, and I show you later in the video, is if you hit start on your controller, you'll be able to delete some of these or hide them. You're not deleting them. You can hide them really easily just by hitting start and then going into the user interface and then changing the categories included. So you can eliminate, for example, Amiga and Commodore 64 and all these older systems if you don't play them, or vice versa, eliminate all the newer systems like Wii U, GameCube. You can hide those if that's something you're not really interested in. So now we're in Nintendo, and we've so far family computer system, and then we have Game Boy here. And what you'll notice is it has all the, until about GameCube. Everything GameCube and below, you're going to have every single Nintendo game you can possibly think of, all the Pokemons, everything else. Even Game Boy Advanced. Nintendo DS, huge collection there. And it even has Nintendo 3DS as well, which is a nice welcomed little add-ons. But when it comes to 3DS, GameCube, Wii U, they're going to have a certain amount of games included on there, not the whole the collection. So here we go, going to Game Boy Color. I just want to check that the Pokemon games are on here. Sometimes these companies are, trying to get Nintendo off their back, so they don't include the Marios and the Pokemons. But this one is included here, as you see, in many different regions of the same game. So what I plan on doing this video as we go along is just go through all the systems. Not every system I'll be showing all the games, but give you a good idea. Then I'll show the actual product, review it, show you what the physical unit is, and then just a couple of the fixes that I had to do. And then I'll give some emulation performance and my final thoughts. So here we go, MAME. So remember earlier, I said there's a bunch of places to check for arcade games. This is another one. So MAME, FB Neo, arcade, and then the CPS systems are all arcade. Now, Xbox emulator, the emulator's installed, but there's only one game, the Jet Radio. And I play that later. It runs just great. I'll give you a little hint as we're going through. All the Neo Geo games are here. Huge Neo Geo CD collection, all the Neo Geo Pocket. But as far as emulation performance goes, you're going to start hitting lag in PlayStation 3. But all the PlayStation 2 played flawlessly. All the GameCube played flawlessly. Sega Saturn played flawlessly. So everything that's included on here is 95% playable, meaning you might get a little sound lag occasionally, like in Mario Kart for Wii U. Like there's a little tiny bit of sound lag, but other than that, it all ran great. This little i7 is chugging along. So speaking of lag and performance, Nintendo 3DS a little bit more power hungry of a system, especially if you have to play some more advanced games. Monster Hunter 4 might be probably one of the hardest ones on this list. But I played Animal Crossing New Leaf, and it played 100% flawless. You can actually use your keyboard and mouse as a touchscreen, and then or just use the controller. The controller worked just fine for this particular system. Now moving along, next up will be Nintendo 64. And here is where I was able to, this is where I think a company like this would benefit is if they optimize the Nintendo 64. There's some huge Nintendo 64 fans out there. The system itself, it's harder to emulate. It's not a matter of performance. It's just more of a matter of emulation and getting it to look properly. And so if you hit select on your controller, there's a bunch of different emulators you could choose from, and also the resolution. And so you'll notice here in emulator, there's an auto, there's MuPin 64 Plus and -Next. I would say 80% of the games run really well on that. Now you have the Glide, the Rice, you also have Parallel. The one I like to experiment with is Parallel. I find that runs really well, especially if a game is typically laggy. It seems to kind of eliminate the lag, where the MuPin, you can really get good graphics. Like you can get it looking good. And speaking of getting it looking good, you change these rendering resolutions, depending on if it's a 4:3, you're running 4:3 or 16:9 aspect ratio. You can bump these up or down and get it looking way better. And when we get to the end of the video here, I'll show you GoldenEye before And then GoldenEye after I upped the res a little bit. And the lag, the performance is exactly the same, but it looks like, in my opinion, it looks like 3 to 4 times better at the higher resolution. And so you can go in and assign for each game manually, or for the whole emulator for the whole category. You could do that as well. All right, now moving forward, you do have the Nintendo 64 DD. These are just some development games and something fun to try out. You'll notice as we move forward, there's going to be quite a bit of hack games, homebrews, things like that, especially in some of these Nintendo systems. But there you go, SimCity 64. You know, maybe a game you've always wanted to try out. So Nintendo DS, 6,700 games. So this is one of those folders where it's just like super inflated as far as, you know, back to this thing has 122,000 games on it. You know, there's going to be some duplicates, a lot of games, you know, where they're not necessarily duplicates, but they're different regions. And, you know, I brought this to their attention, to Ken Hank's attention, and they're very much like the idea of like more is better. And so that's totally fine. I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just literally showing you this is what you're getting, and expect that, right? You can absolutely, you know, use that select button to, you know, search around to get to a specific game. You can also remember add favorites from the beginning of the video there. I think it's either X or Y on your controller. You can favorite a game. So you can find the games you like playing regularly, or maybe you're working on a particular game like NES Tetris or GoldenEye or one of the Marios, and you can go ahead and favorite it, and then you don't have to worry about all the other stuff. And then if your friends come over or something like that and you want to play some multiplayer games, then you can go venture off and find those games. And so there's many ways of customizing this to your liking. So Nintendo, again, the regular one, huge collection there. And then we're in Nintendo Hacks. And this is hilarious to me, how all the different hack Marios. There's even like HF2, is that Half-Life 2? I don't know. Messed Up World Weirdness Edition. I mean, aren't you intrigued to try that out? So if you're watching the video and you're not going to buy this system, you can even try searching these ROMs. They're out there in the wild. You might even be able to find them. So Mario Brothers XXX Quad X. I don't know what Quad X is. And then even Super Mario Brothers 8. Now, most of these games are complete garbage in my opinion. They're just like, they're funny, or they're, you know, whatever. But some of them are actually kind of cool, you know, so expect mostly bad, occasionally a good one. So Nintendo GameCube, 110 games. So this is nice to see. Mind you, this is a 2 terabyte hard drive, so what that means is they are going to be limited at what they can include on this hard drive, eventually run out of space, right? And so when you get to these bigger games, you know, like GameCube, Wii U, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, you know, PSP, those systems were CD based, and the CDs had, you know, 600 megabytes, 700 megabytes on them. But you'll see later in this video, I mean, the PlayStation collection is mind-blowing. But this is a nice little Nintendo GameCube set. If you're all about just as many games as possible, as much emulation of any games as possible, you know, mind you, Ken Hank sells a 12 terabyte hard drive, the hard drive only. And that's going to be much bigger and have way more games, especially in the GameCube, PlayStation 2 area. And so give that a whirl if you're looking for more GameCube. I would go that route myself. So Super Famicom, again, when I say again, I mean, look how many games there are. Almost 15,000 games. And as you see here, there's just like every region, every game possible. You know, between Super Famicom and SNES, you just have so many titles there. Now, the Nintendo Wii, as we get there, there's not that many games. Do know I had a little issue with the controller here. You might have to reset the controls for Wii. A lot of that has to do with the Wii remote. Is kind of, you know, the Wii remote. Like, look at that thing. Like, it's just not like a regular controller, and it's not necessarily just the touch controls or the, you know, the light bar. It's also some of the keys were just off, so you might have to reset your controls on some of the Wii games. But it's a nice little set of Wii games. You got Zelda on there, Super Smash Bros. But remember, you also have Super Smash Bros. On the GameCube as well. And then you have Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, great games, Super Mario Bros. Wii. The thing about Super Mario Bros. Wii, like, I don't know if you've ever played the game before, but when you have the whatever, I'm sure there's a name for the suit, I can't think of right now, but it's got like a propeller suit. You got to shake the controller for you to fly with it. So you are missing out a little bit there with the full capabilities of that game. So ports, you got Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom Platonia, Bloom TNT, and Prince of Persia. And you also, we TurboGrafx and PC Engine were all there as well. Pi game. So this is like retro trivia game. I haven't played before, but Pi stands for Python. So, it's a little add-on to try out. So Super Famicom Satellaview, only 39 games, so not a huge amount of games there, just a few. Now screenshots, I was a little worried here. I was like, I hope this isn't adult content. What are we getting into here? But as you see here, it's just really random. I think somebody's just trying to try it out. It's just a starting screen for 1945. And I guess, you can easily drag photos into this folder if you want to add some more screenshots. Or when you take screenshots in a game, that also goes there. So you can drag and drop in the folder, or the more obvious one would be to, if you hit select on your controller and then a hotkey, A, B, X, Y, L, R, those are often save your state or rewind the game, or they'll often also, there'll be a button that says take a screenshot. So if you want to like take a screenshot of your score or something like that, you can do that as well. All right, so we're getting into Sega now. Scum VM, by the way, works great with a keyboard and mouse, and this being a computer, you can play that really easily. Sega, you got Sega, you'll notice in a second here, you got Sega Mega CD, which is Sega CD, you got pretty much all of them. You got all the Sega 32X. The Dreamcast collection is pretty decent. Again, this isn't all of them. And you'll notice when I go to Naomi, you're going to have some more Dreamcast there as well. So between those two categories, you have a good amount of games, a lot of the big hitters there, but you're missing quite a few of obscure games, and there's a lot of good games for Dreamcast, so do know that. And again, back to the 12 terabyte hard drive. If you want all the games, you can go for the bigger hard drive. Now, the Genesis is where, so Game Gear, all of them, the Genesis is where things get weird, because there's going to be a Genesis folder, which you're going to see. There's going to be a Mega Drive folder, which you're going to see. And then there's going to be the Mega Drive Japan folder. And there's a Sega Genesis Hacks directory. So there's 4 places, and there's just a ton of stuff here. It's just like the SNES and Famicom area. The same thing's happening here in the Sega Genesis area as well. And so there's just massive games. So every region, every hack, every homebrew is going to be in here. And it's just ridiculous. So you can check all those out here. All right, moving on to Naomi. So between Naomi and Dreamcast, you got quite a few games here. And after Naomi, we should then start getting into the Sony. And massive collections there. Also, Sega Saturn's coming up as well. Huge Sega Saturn collection, ton of games. That one's pretty impressive in my opinion. Is this one here? Yeah, 304. Quite a few games. Now, something I should mention, as we look at each system and how many games are included in each system, do realize, as we saw, there's duplicates, there's things in different regions, and disc systems like Sega Saturn and PlayStation 1, 2, 3, each little, as we're going through this menu here, each item counts as one game in the total, even though, as you see here, there might be a disc 1, disc 2, or a disc 1, 2, 3. And so the actual games on this whole thing is probably closer to like 100,000, even though it says 122. In case you're curious of like how many actual unique games are on there, it's probably closer to that. Now, massive PlayStation, almost 1,500 PlayStation games on this thing. That's just wild to me. Now, there could be some that don't have the soundtrack on there to save space. I did not check every single game. I played 3 games and the tracks were on there. So your mileage may vary. But, PlayStation Classic, came out with like 30 or 40 games or even less? I forget. All these little mini systems, I forget how many each one comes with. But usually not that many. Usually way less than 100. And here we are at 1,500. So talk about the ultimate PlayStation. But I see some duplicates again, so let's call it, 1,300, conservatively. That's still pretty impressive. So as we move along, we're going to get to PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3, there's only 7 games. PlayStation 2, there's quite a bit. And then PSP. When we get to PSP, you'll notice that some of these games are going to be PSP mini games, and then some of them are full-blown PSP games, like God of War. And so just notice that when I scroll through the games, that it's like 400-something PSP games, and note that probably close to 300 are going to be PSP mini games. So as we see, Super Nintendo, massive amounts of games there. Again, there's going to be duplicates, different regions, things like that. There's hacks in there as well. Then we get to some other systems here, Vectrex, all the Virtual Boys, Supervision. Wii U is just going to be Mario Kart, and then Windows is going to be Plants vs. Zombies. And every single thing I tested worked. Okay, so people always say, that's what they want to know. Does this thing work? Do the games work? Yes, all the emulators work. The only system I had an issue with was the Wii with the controls, and all I had to do was reset the controls. And then what I mentioned with the arcade, there's so many different emulators for different arcade ROMs, different versions of those ROMs, so sometimes you have to match up a different version of the MAME emulator or Final Burn emulator, and they're working fine. So that's all the games. Next, we're going to do the unboxing. We're going to check out the emulation, but close to 100,000 games. So I just wanted to show you some shortcuts here. You can start on your controller. You can change the sound settings, turn off it does come with background music, turn that on. You can download new themes as well as change the theme. So if you don't like the way this is looked, you want it more like flashy, there's some really flashy front ends out there. You can turn on and off the bezels within the games. You can update Battlesera as new versions come out. And then the game collection settings here, as you notice, there's 89 different systems, right? And so you can remove some. They're not all systems too, like CPS 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I would count that as 1, you know, so unique systems on this thing is close to 80. Pretty crazy. It's a lot of different consoles to play around with. And you can also go into a system like I just did and then hit select on your controller and then scroll down to advanced system settings, and you can change all kinds of things. The ability to rewind, you can mess with the graphics, smooth out the pixels, things like that, all at your fingertips. And then when you're in a game, if you hit select and X, you'll open up RetroArch and you can do even more customization. Today we have the Mini PC Super Console. It does look decent. Looks just like the GameCube controller, but a wired version of it. It does have a turbo key, indicators. So dual Ethernet ports, USB 3, USB 2, full-size HDMI, full-size display port. You can see the heat sink and fan here. Power. This is going to be for your Wi-Fi. It does also have Bluetooth. Lots of space. It's an all-metal case, which is really nice. And then it does have a 2 terabyte hard drive in there. It looks like there's some sort of mounting plate as well. Those are what the screws are for. And power button, audio, USB-C, and then two more USB-A's. And this thing actually has a SSD in it, and then a 2 terabyte spinning hard drive. So, all right, I want to show how to get into BIOS really quick. I'm hitting the power button on the computer, the button turns green, and then I'm just hitting select on the keyboard right here. Or there's the BIOS. If you get the blue screen, press it again, it turns it off. Up at the top here, we want to go over to boot. So go with your keys, go to boot, and then boot option 1. You want it to be the UEFI OS on the Toshiba hard drive. When you first boot, it's going to look like this. I had already changed mine. And so you just want to click over on the Windows boot, on boot option 1, change it to the Toshiba. And then you want to make sure you save it now. So you go to the right, click save changes and exit, enter. Are you sure? Yes. And then it should load up. It should say that right in the corner, booting Batocera. And then there you go. You should have the boot screen. Mine was not set by default to that. Yours might be, but you know, you're rocking and rolling now. Just want to show you on a cold boot with that SSD, it should boot up pretty quick. And it does have a Windows 10 already on it. And so this would be great for your streaming and things like that. Here you go. So on the computer here, it is calling this an i7-8750H. So that's great. That's really quite nice to have that. It's running 11 Pro on it as well. Last thing I want to see, yeah, i7-8750H CPU, 8 gigs of RAM. RAM's running at 2667. And then you have the 2 hard drives, the Toshiba 2 terabyte and then the IT 128 128 terabyte SSD. All right, here we go. So starting with Xbox, Jet Grind Radio, going through the little tutorial here. And apologize for the sound. Because this is a computer, the way I have it through my capture card, for some reason, it just didn't grab the sound. It grabbed the video just fine. I can tell you right now with this game, there's no sound tearing, anything like that. It worked just fine. It's able to grind rails and go hard at it. Here you go. We have Nintendo 3DS. You can change the view within the emulator. You know, 3DS had 2 screens, the bottom screen, the top screen. You can go side by side or up and down, and you know, you can play this game all you want, and it ran with 0 lag. So next we have the GoldenEye setup here. So here it is as default. It's actually not that bad. It actually looks a lot better on the capture card than what I was experiencing. But you notice the guy here, very, very hard to see. And just doesn't look amazing. I mean, Nintendo 64 didn't necessarily look amazing. per se, but you'll notice I can get it to look a lot better if you, when you're in the main menu there, you hit select, you change the emulator. This is up at, I think, 720 or 680 by 600, whatever that resolution is. And as you see here, you could see it right there in the font when you start the game, that it just looks a lot cleaner and a lot crisper. I'll let you be the judge. Moving along to the Nintendo GameCube. The controls were working great. It looks great. Super Smash Bros. Ran just fine. Maybe if you have like 3 or 4 computers on the screen, you might get a little bit of lag, but it's pretty typical on a computer without a dedicated graphics card, but very much playable and running great. The next one is PlayStation 3. I just wanted to share with you that the first time you run a PlayStation game, it has to compile all the shaders and everything. That's pretty typical. And this computer's not super fast, so it takes a while. I am going to play Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer definitely had some audio lag. Remember, this is PlayStation 3. That's a much harder system to emulate than all the rest we've emulated so far. But it was very much playable. Very much as far as actually playing the game. But if you want a really good performance, you're going to have to, throw in a graphics card and or get something a little bit more powerful. So as we keep going, we're going to do some PSP, we're going to do some PlayStation 2 next, Tekken, and then PSP Gods of War, and then Wii U to round it off. So you can just watch as I talk about this product. So the cons, really the biggest con here is the price point. If you like Kinhang products, they're known for cheap products. Like you can get a 2 terabyte or 4 terabyte or 5 terabyte hard drive from them for almost the cost of the hard drive new. So it's like, wow, that's so cheap. Now, there's so many options there, but a lot of people on this channel say, oh, is this plug and play? And those hard drives are not plug and play. You have to get the hard drive. You then have to hook it up to your computer. Where this is a truly plug and play device. You buy this PC, it comes with the controller, you plug it in. Yes, you actually need a keyboard to hit escape and change it to the operating system. But once you do that, you don't need a keyboard anymore. And then you are rocking and rolling in Batocera. And you can hook it up to your TV, you can hook it up to your home device. And that 2 terabyte hard drive built in with the boot already set up for you is great. I think it's a great option for people, especially those that have some money to spend. If you're broke or you just don't have a lot of money, I get it. Go build your own. You can build something like this. You could go buy a really cheap computer on eBay or an old laptop, or maybe you already have a computer, and then you could build something like this. You could go download Batocera Linux for free, download the ROMs for free, and then build something like this all day long. But it's not going to be plug and play. So that's the value here, is that they literally give you the controller. It's a decent controller, by the way. My review on the controller is this. I give it like a C+. The reason I'm giving it not an A is because I don't like, 1, that it's wired, and 2, the price point. I think it's a little high for what they're selling it for. But, at the end of the day, it's like you're paying $10, $20 more than you could if you bought a third-party controller separately. So, I mean, for those people who really watch every dollar, they're going to be like, yeah, I'd rather buy my own. For those of you who just want convenience, it's fine. It does the job. It does have a rumble pack. It has all the keys you're going to need for the majority of these systems. And I think the fact that it's wired, it eliminates one more obstacle if you're new to this whole emulation thing. One more obstacle of getting it paired up, setting your keys, all that stuff. It's literally plug and play. So if you have the money, this thing is definitely cool, especially, like I said, the value of it. If you hook it up to a TV, you have Windows 11 on there. It could do everything for you, right? And then the biggest con being the price. You could shop around. There's other things out there. You could build it yourself. But this thing's fairly squared away for a Kinhang device, and it has over 100,000 games. You just plug it in, and you're rocking and rolling. That's pretty cool. So I think this video gave you a pretty good explanation of what's there. Everything that's included, the specs, the performance you can expect. So now it's up to you. Like I said, you can do your own thing. You can just buy the hard drive and save some money if you want something pre-built, or you can go all the way up to this. Or remember, I kind of reviewed a less powerful mini computer that they also sell with only a 500 terabyte hard drive, the M100. So check that video out if maybe you want to just start, get your feet wet with something a little cheaper. There's that option as well. So anyways, that's what I think. Let me know what y'all think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.